Okay, so test anxiety. How many of you freak out when it's test time? Okay, like to the point where it's just like, oh, I really don't like taking tests, or to the point where you might have to like go visit the nurse or the doctor. Just not want to take or just not want to take a test. Some comfortable test anxiety is actually a good thing. There's physical and chemical things that happen within your body that if you have some kind of adrenaline rushing through your body, you actually perform better on your test. When it crosses over into a negative place is when you really begin to feel absolutely ill. Physical things like breaking out in absolute sweats, nauseous, headaches, you feel like you're going to pass out, really upset stomach, have to go to the bathroom a whole lot during, right before, during, or even after a test. Mind totally goes absolutely 100% blank, can't remember anything. That's when it crosses over into really some kind of high anxiety, and that's where we have to start monitoring it, working on it, really trying to find some strategies and tips to overcome it. But just a little bit of dread, a little bit of anxiousness actually just shows that you're a good student, you're worried about your grades, and you want to do well. So try to identify yourself on which scale you're at. Did any of you score just in the comfortable normal range of test anxiety? That would be the 1.0 to 2.5. Ooh, all of y'all are higher than that? Okay, so you're just kind of, all right, so that's cool. Anybody high to moderately high? Anybody high or extremely high? Well, where is the rest of you? Moderately? Okay, where were you? High normal. Okay, so it's okay. Where were you, Alexis?
High.
High? High test anxiety. Do you have some physical things like sweaty, heart racing, butterflies in your stomach when it comes to test time? And it might not even be tests. It might actually be when it comes to writing essays, writing papers. You could have the same feeling like in your dorm room, whether it's like, oh, I really hate this, a whole lot of dread, feel sick about something, put something off, a certain assignment that you hate. It could be public speaking. It could be a presentation you have to make. Anything that causes you any kind of high stress with your academics. But the thing about test anxiety and any kind of academic anxiety is it's a learned behavior. So anything that is learned can be unlearned. So you're not doomed for the rest of your academic career to be stuck in anxiety land. You actually can learn some things that can help you. So today we're going to talk about just some warning signs, a few easy tricks and tips that you can do to kind of overcome that. But then we're actually going to talk about different types of tests and different types of strategies that you can use in multiple choice tests, essay tests, short answer tests that may help you ease your anxiety just a little bit. Okay. So this actually happened at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. The students got paralyzed as the minutes ticked by. An hour later, the exam in statistics was over. He turned in his work and it was absolutely, completely blank, except for his name. Has this ever happened to anybody? This particular student has extremely high test anxiety. They tested him and like ridiculously so that he was so sick, so anxious, so stressed out during this test, he could not even function enough to do anything on his paper except his name. I hope that that is not the case with any of you. But this is a real legit issue in college, and it's something that really needs to be addressed and dealt with. So you may not identify exactly with this guy, but you may have had sweaty palms before. Can you guys see this? Do you want me to turn the light off so you can see it better? Allison, you would wrap the light, or at least, I don't know if you just do the first lights, or is that better? A little bit? Okay. You may have had sweaty palms before where your pencil's like slipping out of your hand because your hands are just sweaty and a whole lot of rubbing on your pants. You may be jittery, fidgety, you can't sit still, your foot's tapping a lot. Tapping your pen on the table, a whole lot of this right before a test. You've heard that around your test room? Okay, that's test anxiety, either from you or somebody sitting around you. You may just be nauseous, butterflies in your stomach, upset stomach, like feel like you're going to throw up, or you have to make a mad dash to the restroom. You may have trouble sleeping the night before or the night after a test. Test anxiety isn't just prior to a test, it actually can follow you until you find out your grade. Racing pulse, heart rate, you may have a bad headache, or your mind may go absolutely blank, like can't remember a thing. These symptoms sound familiar? Any of them? At least one? Maybe all? Okay. So the official definition of test anxiety is described as the worry or fear that is caused by having to take a test. Okay. The anxiety and stress adversely affects your ability to perform well on tests, even when you are well prepared. This is something that I see come through my office a lot, and I kind of think it's an excuse. There's a lot of people that sit down and they say, oh, I just didn't do well on my test because I have test anxiety. Okay, that's legit. But then if we dig a little further, we say, did you study? Have you been studying for weeks in advance to this test, or did you stay up all night and cram? Have you been to study sessions or test prep sessions? And when you dig a little deeper, you find out really they weren't prepared. Being unprepared for a test is not test anxiety. That's you just being freaked out because you know you don't know this stuff. True test anxiety comes from when you have studied, you have done everything you can to prepare for a test, and you're still anxious about it. So don't blame your lack of preparation or your lack of studying on test anxiety. It's not the same thing, okay? Not the same. That's just being unprepared and you're having a reaction because you may feel guilty about not having studied like you should, or you're beginning to panic because you realize, oh crap, now my test is here and I haven't done everything I need to. So true test anxiety is when you know you've covered all your bases and you are still freaking out. Okay? Test anxiety is a learned behavior. I said that in the beginning. Because it is learned, it can be unlearned. So there is hope. Okay, here are some common causes of test anxiety. Pressure to earn a certain grade, whether it's due to needing to make certain grades to maintain certain GPAs, maintain scholarships. You know that a certain test is going to be the hinge factor in a certain course, and so you just feel a whole lot of pressure. When it comes to standardized tests, same deal. If you feel when you were taking your ACTs or SATs before, or when it's time for grad school, it's time to take your GREs or your LSATs, you have a lot of pressure feeling like this is going to make or break you. That can cause a whole lot of test anxiety. Past failure on similar exams or courses. Say the last time you took Dr. So-and-so's test, you failed. So now it's time, even though you're super prepared for his second exam, you have a whole lot of anxiety because you know that the last time you didn't do well, so now you're anxious because this coming up exam you won't do well on. It may be an unfamiliar type of test. You may have never taken an all-essay test before. It's totally unfamiliar to you. You like multiple choice and short answer, and you haven't ever had a professor say this entire thing is open response and essay, and that totally freaks you out. Uncertainty about test format. Maybe you have a professor that wasn't clear about exactly what the test was going to look like. And some professors around campus do that. They just say, show up for my exam, and you have no idea if you're walking into multiple choice. You have no idea if you're walking into short answer. You have no idea if you're going to have a word bank, if it's matching, if it's essay. That is an anxiety inducer, just not knowing even how to study the right way. Okay? Uncertainty about test content. I hear this a lot too. The professor said that his test was over just our lecture, and then we got in there and he put stuff that was in the book in there. Okay? Or he said it was only going to be about the book, and then it was about our notes. So not knowing exactly what the professor is going to test over causes a lot of anxiety. You may have a lot of competition from your classmates. You may feel like other people are smarter than you, they do better than you, and so you may have that kind of competition going. That causes a lot of anxiety. There may be rumors of difficulty circulating. Maybe on the day of the test, it may be from another class that had the test 2 hours before you're going to take it, and all you've heard is how hard this test is. That makes the heart rate start going up. Or you may seriously already have some current issues with depression and anxiety already. If you already have underlying tones of anxiety and depression, like clinical kinds of stuff, where you may be on medicine or you're already seeing a counselor, tests are only going to elevate that even more. So, what can you do? Above everything, be prepared. Okay? Be prepared. Remember, lack of preparation is not the same thing as test anxiety. That's just you not being prepared for your tests. Being prepared means attend your classes. There is no substitution in college for going to your classes. That way, you haven't missed assignments, you haven't missed anything that the professor has said, you haven't missed any notes. Getting notes from your friend works only as well as your friend took notes and that they can tell you back what the professor said. It is not a substitution for sitting in class yourself. You may get tired and you want to skip class one day. That's just shooting yourself in the foot when it gets closer to test time. So there's no substitution for attending your class. Study, don't cram. They're different. Cramming is not study. Cramming is just trying to jam like a square peg in a circle hole. It does not work, okay? Studying over a period of time will help the material stick a whole lot better than cram sessions. Plus, cram sessions just usually keep you up all night, which means you're not going to be rested or refreshed. You'll probably have a headache or something the next morning, and that's not going to help you do well at your test either. So don't cram. Develop and stick to a study schedule. It's not fun to study for 3 weeks out for a test. It's just not, but it's what you need to do to be successful. So find and stick to a study schedule. Keep your study times reasonable. Don't study for 2 hours every night. That's crazy. If you have a good study schedule and you're studying ahead of time, give yourself 45 minutes. Okay, I'm going to study 45 minutes every night for this course. That is much better than trying to cram 8 hours the night before a test, which just makes you crazy and will stress you out even more. Don't cram. Okay. Stay on top of materials, readings, and lectures. Do your work. If your professor assigns readings, do your readings. Review your notes. Do your homework. Make sure you're doing well on your quizzes. All of this, when it comes time for test time, the material will start flooding back to you. Attend any study sessions. We harp on tutoring a lot down in the center. It actually really does work. It's not just because they pay me to say that, it's because it's legit and it's real. Okay? So test prep sessions, study sessions, find a tutor, it helps. Don't cram. Did I say don't cram? Don't cram. Okay? Cramming really does not work. If anything is going to intensify your test anxiety on the day of a test, it's because you stayed up until 4 or 5 in the morning or didn't go to bed at all the night before a big test. You want to be freaked out that morning, it'll be cramming. So cramming does not work. It would actually be better to not study at all than to try to cram, because cramming is only going to make you tired, not rested, give you a headache, all of that. So study consistently, no cramming. Test day preparation, super essential. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. You've heard this from the beginning when you started taking those standardized tests in elementary school. They would always send those notes home to your parents to say, make sure they get a good night's sleep, eat a healthy breakfast. It's true. Rest makes your brain work better. So get a good night's sleep. All night cram sessions do not help. Eat when and what you normally eat. Breakfast is a good idea. Okay, don't switch it up. If you're not a breakfast person, eating like sausage and eggs and all of this before a test just because you think it's going to help you better because you've always heard eating a good breakfast before your test, that's probably just going to make you sick. Okay? So eat what and when you normally eat. Don't mess up your body language, what's going on, by trying to do something that somebody has always told you. Also, this is something that's interesting. You need to stay away from the caffeine on test days. I'm a big coffee drinker, but caffeine is a stimulant that kind of makes you crazy and jittery anyway. So if you're going to add a whole bunch of caffeine into your already jittery state, you're just going to make yourself a little more anxious and nervous. Okay? So stay away from the coffee. Get your coffee after the test. Make sure you ready yourself before a test. Use your normal pens and pencils. Don't be borrowing from somebody and then you don't know if it has lead or if it has ink. That just makes people nervous. Make sure that you're all good to go. Turn your phone off. You don't need any extra distractions. You can get your brain in the right place. Use your restroom before your test. Make sure you're all good to go. Avoid sitting by your friends in a test room. One, it's really distracting because you have a tendency to like check what your friend's doing. Two, if you sit down next to a friend, you might have a tendency to talk about how hard the test is going to be, and you don't need that negative language going on before a test. So if you can kind of get alone in a test room, unless your professor has a seating chart, can't really help that. But if you can kind of get off by yourself, just kind of center yourself and get ready for your test, you'll put yourself in a better position than surrounding you with a bunch of people where y'all can do a lot of negative talk before the test. Not good. Don't arrive too early, and definitely don't arrive late. Getting early to a test is only going to freak you out. Okay? It would be better to take a few extra minutes walking around campus, getting some fresh air. Walk in just in time for your test. Don't arrive early and sit here and freak yourself out before a test. Not a good idea. But don't come late. Not a good thing. Relax, breathe, and get comfortable. There are all kinds, I know because I just looked, on YouTube and on the internet, all these breathing exercises and all this music you can listen to that's supposed to relax you and all of that. If you're into that kind of thing, have at it, okay? Do your deep breathing exercises and listen to like string harps and all that kind of stuff. If that's your gig, have at it. It's not mine. I would rather just some peace and quiet or listen to music that I actually like, but just take some time to just relax, okay? Briefly review your notes, nothing strenuous. If you pull out your notes and just flip through, make some, notes again about important dates or people or formulas, that's okay, but don't stress yourself out doing any kind of last minute cram sessions. Stay positive and don't involve yourself in any kind of doomsday conversations. If you hear people start in about how difficult the test is going to be and you've never taken a test this hard, walk away. You don't need any of that negativity going on. It just increases the stress level. And again, relax. You've worked hard. Because remember, if you have real test anxiety, that means you're prepared. You've studied. You've done everything you can. So be proud of yourself. You've worked hard for this. It's going to be okay. Now, if you have not prepared, it's going to be harder for you to relax. And my only answer for that is prepare. Do your work. Study ahead of time. During your test, take a few minutes as soon as you get your test to flip it over on the back or over in the margins and jot down the things that you remember. Important dates, people's names, people's places, formulas. Just go ahead and jot them down. If you remembered acrostics to remember different things, like Roy G. Biv is the rainbow, and if you remember things like that, go ahead and write them down so that in the middle of the test you don't freak out and have a brain freeze. You'll have little notes written on the side. Perfectly fine. If allowed, and you can ask your professor about this, this actually helps some people. You can ask your professor if you're allowed to use a blank sheet of paper. And you cover up everything on the test except for the question that you're working on. That helps you concentrate on one question at a time instead of looking at this big, huge test that is staring you in the face and it's a little freaky. So if you can, get a blank sheet of paper. Just go down the row. Helps you concentrate better. Also, if it's allowed by your professor, chew gum or suck on peppermint. It gives you something to do, okay, to release some energy. But also, there was a study done that mint actually is proven to increase your memory. So if you have mint gum, cinnamon kind of does the same thing. It doesn't have as high of increased rates as peppermint does. But if you can suck on a peppermint or chew mint or cinnamon gum, okay, it actually does something in the brain to promote some memory. So, good idea. Take deep breaths during your test and focus on what you know. Answer what you know first, then go back and do the other stuff. And we're going to talk about some test strategies. Make sure you keep those in check while you're doing your test. Okay, there was a new study out. It was by the University of Chicago. And they went into a classroom much like this one. And they gave a pop quiz to a group of students. Okay? And they graded it. Then they had the next class come in that had been in the same course, same amount of people, same diversity rate, the whole thing. And they gave them about 10 minutes and a piece of paper to jot down how they were feeling. Terrified about this test, I hate taking tests suck, I'm really nervous. They just wrote down lots of different things. Then they gave them their quiz. The class that was able to jot down their feelings and kind of get some things out on paper actually had a 5% increase in all of their grades than the class that didn't. This does not require any huge journaling. You could probably do it in the notes on your phone. Okay? You could text it to yourself or email it to yourself, jot it on the back of a piece of scratch paper and chunk it out in the trash can on your way out the door. But about 20, maybe 30 minutes, 20 minutes before your test, if you just take a few minutes and write down how you're feeling about the test, get your feelings out, it kind of relaxes you. Maybe worth a shot, okay? All right, let's talk now about different strategies for different types of tests. Who likes multiple choice tests? Do you like them? Some people hate them. I actually hate multiple choice tests because I can convince myself that every single answer is correct. I can talk myself out of every answer, and I can convince myself that somehow everyone is true. It's a little overwhelming for me. But some people like them, that's your preference. Here are some tips you can do when you are working on multiple choice tests. Read the entire question before you look for the answer. And then make sure before you read all those choices that you already know the answer in your head that you're looking for. Okay? Then read your choices. And make sure that you read every single one. I think the biggest trip up is when people look at A or they get to B and they're like, oh, that's it, circle it, go to the next question. They don't even read C and D. And it could be that just a word flip or something has totally changed the whole answer and they missed the right answer because they got in a hurry. So make sure that you read every single choice. Scratching out the answers you know aren't right is good. A lot of people like to do that just to narrow down the options for yourself visually. If you don't have a guessing penalty, and I actually have never met a professor that counts off for guessing, okay? Maybe there are some, I don't know. But if there is not a guessing penalty, always, always, always take an educated guess. Don't take a stupid guess. Take an educated guess, okay? Being silly is not for multiple choice tests. You can be silly on short answer and fill in the blank test, multiple choice, educated guesses. Don't keep changing your answer. Unless you misread the question and you know that you did, go with your gut. So if you circle the answer after you've read all of the choices and you've circled C, and then you sit around and you think, oh, I don't know if that's right. I'm going to erase that. You go back and you circle it. Oh, I don't know if that's right. D. C was probably the right answer. So if you're kind of in limbo of what to do, go with your gut. First choice was probably right. At least that would be the best educated guess most of the time. All of the above or none of the above, don't mark those unless you're positive. That is not an educated guess, okay? All of the above and none of the above have to be completely accurate every time. And if you are not 100% sure about it, don't circle those. Choose another one in an educated guess. Right? Positive choices do tend to be more correct more often than negative choices. Tends to be that when professors write tests, they like things in the positive. So if you are unsure and you're guessing, if you can pick a positive choice, that's probably going to be more right than a negative one. Those would be the answers that are like, when it says, red is not the color of Jill's dress. That's a negative answer. But Jill's dress is red is a positive answer, okay? So don't choose the negatives if you are guessing. Always go for a positive if you're guessing. That usually tends to maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10 is going to be one more likely to be correct. Usually the answer with the most information is the correct one. Correct answers are usually not vague. Incorrect answers are usually very vague because they don't include all of the details. Correct answers, professors like to throw the details in the correct answers. So if you're guessing, make sure you choose one that has more information. That would be a more educated guess. Okay, these are my favorite. Fill in the blank. I especially like them if there's a word bank. But my preference is always short answer, fill in the blank. Because most of the time, for me personally, everybody's different, but for me personally, usually professors will give you some grace and some leeway here. If you even can kind of get the answer right, they may even give you partial credit. Whereas on multiple choice or matching, once you circle something, it's all or nothing for that. But fill in the blank and short answer, sometimes you can get some partial credit there. If you are studying for any kind of short answer, fill in the blank, flashcards are great. Dates, names, places, terms, always going to be things to remember and pull out. Pay attention to the directions on a test. If they tell you to list something, they want you to list it. If they want you to define it, they want you to define it. If they want you to name it, that's what they want you to do. So make sure you're reading your directions very clearly and make sure you know exactly what they're asking for. Never ever leave an answer blank. Always make an educated yes. Again, they may give you partial credit, even if you know just a part of it. Even if you know the guy's first name and you don't know his last name. That's something, okay? Now, cute and funny answers. You guys have probably seen lots of memes and you probably have even done some of it on your own, where you write in like Mickey Mouse or Superman or something like goofy and silly on your test if you totally don't know the answer. That only works if you know for sure that your professor has a good sense of humor. Otherwise, some professors take that you don't take their class seriously. And not that they would count off points for it, but it might affect you later when they are determining the effort that you have in their class. I know we've talked some in our different like success classes, transition classes, about the effort that you put in with a professor can go a long way. That if you're riding on that line of needing to turn a C into a B, when the professor goes to put in grades, if he knows that you've worked really hard in his class, he might bump your grade up to a B. This kind of stuff, unless he's really funny and you guys joke a lot, then that's going to strike a chord with him. But if you've got a really serious, staunch professor, when it comes time for grading time, he may say, you know what, I'm not changing that C to a B because he didn't really care about my class anyway. He makes fun of me on my test because he writes in these hokey answers. So just really judge who your professors are before you start writing goofy answers in. Otherwise, make sure they're very educated, okay? Save questions you don't know for the very last, because most of the time you will find, whether it's inside the essay question or multiple choice, they may throw the date or the place or the person or a formula inside another question somewhere else on the test. So if you don't know a certain answer, go ahead and do the rest of your test, and then something later on will go, oh, that's it. That's the guy's name right there. Then you can go back, plug his name in, and you probably got it right. Okay? So make sure you save those. Make sure, too, that you answer all parts of the question. It's a bad habit about only answering that first part, and then you leave the second part of the directions blank. Make sure you read all your directions and get all your bases covered. Now, essay questions. Who likes essay questions? Ooh, me too. I like them too. Why do you like them? Do you mind telling us?
I like the essay questions because it's kind of just me, I guess, freelancing on the answers.
Yeah.
And I usually, like, if I don't know it, I can make it sound really good and get the point.
There you go. Read all of the directions. If there is more than one essay choice, make sure you know if you have to answer all of them or have a choice. I actually gave a test in one of my classes. It's been a couple of weeks ago, and they needed to answer all of the essay questions, but they thought that it was a choice, so they only answered one, and they ended up getting several points off, just because they didn't read the direction part of the top that said answer every essay question. So not every professor gives you the choice. Some want you to answer them all, so make sure you're reading your directions. Write, write, write. The more that you write, the higher your grade. Write everything you know about the topic. Don't skimp on your essays. You want to make them sound good, and you want to give back all of the information that you have ever heard on that topic in his lecture, in the book. Give it all to it. The more that you write, the higher your grade. If you're gonna turn in a test with an essay question that has 2 or 3 sentences, you're not gonna get full credit. I would guarantee you that. The longer that you make it, the more information you can throw back at that professor, the higher your grade will be. Make sure you budget your time too. Don't spend your whole time on your essay. The other parts of your test are important too. Some people like to do their essay first, get that out of the way, and then go back. That's probably a personal preference. If you want to watch your clock or and do 20 minutes for the first section of your test, 20 minutes for the next section, and give yourself 20 minutes for the essay, that's fine. Just make sure you're watching the clock, budgeting your time. Facts or opinions, this goes along with making sure you read your directions. If it wants the facts, only give them facts. Don't fill it full of I feel, I think, this is how or this is what I know about it. Make sure that it's the facts that they gave you. Some essays want your opinions. Give them your opinions. Don't try to fill it full of a bunch of facts. That's not what he asked for. He asked for how you felt about something. So make sure you are clear about what he's asking you and answer that. Write neatly. There was a study done that said neater papers tend to get higher grades. It's probably because professors have to grade tons and tons and tons of these. And the easier that you make it for them to read, where they don't have to try to figure out what you're writing through your handwriting, be easier for them to grade it. So make sure you write neatly. Don't spend a lot of time on introductions or conclusions. You've been taught how to write essays like in comp and stuff with these really nice introductions and conclusions. Not really the time for it on essay tests. You need to spend the bulk of your time writing a really good piece of writing about the content. Don't spend so much time on your introductions and conclusions. If you have time, proofread. That says a lot to professors. So if you have the time, make sure you go back and check it. If you aren't sure of the exact dates, don't leave it out. It would be better to show that you kind of remember than to not remember at all. So if you don't remember that it was 5032 BC, use words like approximately or around. At least then that the professor knows, okay, they kind of get it. That could be partial credit for you. So don't just totally leave something out because you're not exactly sure. Give them the information that you know. That says a lot. And then never, ever, 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 ever leave an essay blank. At least write something. At least write something. Okay? All right. Remember, when it comes to test taking, calm down. That's the first thing. You've worked hard. You've prepared well. You'll be okay. One test also is not going to make or break you. Give yourself some breathing room. Okay? It may come down to where you feel like something is on the line, but there are always chances for more points. If you've prepared well, you probably are going to be okay, and one test isn't going to doom you forever. Okay? Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. If the entire room has turned their paper in and you're still working, who cares? That's fine. Okay? No big deal. Be really well rested and well nourished. And then, if you are still having extreme anxiety and you really feel like this is out of control, you really need some extra help, you may need to seek a professional. Because it is a real deal, that really, really high extreme anxiety. We have a university counselor. His name is Dan Jartle. He's great. Here's his number, and here's his email address, which I can give you later if you feel like you need it. But, on the back of the blue sheet that I gave you, it has some strategies just for if there is something in particular that you are feeling causes you a lot of anxiety. There are some just like an idea there about what you can kind of think through and process to help you feel a little better about it. Mainly, calm down, be prepared, and you'll be okay. Okay, that's all. Any questions? Comments? Go do well on your tests. See you later. Let us know if you need anything.